Hello, everybody. This is Nick with UMO News. I want to thank you for supporting an unbiased media outlet. Please continue and remember to like, share, and follow on all platforms. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, all of the above. Just be sure to check out at UMO News and UMOMass.com. Now, today we're bringing you two mainstream media sources. We have Fox News and we have CNN News. They're both reported on the same topic, which is the earlier announcement by Trump of federal agents going into Chicago. Fox's heading says Trump calls in federal agents to Chicago, and CNN's is Trump announces surge of federal forces in Chicago. So let's see how both of them report on the same topic. We're going to start out with Fox News.
Bring in our political panel now. Jason Chaffetz and Richard Fowler, both are Fox News contributors. And Congressman, to you first, you hear this all the time, right? We talk about Democratic mayors who want to defund their own police departments, but they do not want any outside help from the federal government. And the crime rates in a lot of these cities just continue to go up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the numbers don't lie. I mean, there are literally 1,900 shootings in Chicago, getting worse every day. We're talking 40 to 50 shootings over a weekend, and they just seem to think that that's acceptable. I do believe there should be a partnership. The feds are not coming in to sweep the streets top to bottom, but to work in unison with the fraternal order of police. These people are being overwhelmed. The Democratic position, though, is let's have less police, less funding. And how do they think that is possibly going to lead to safer streets? There is no rational argument to say that that would work.
Is that a fair question, Richard? I mean, how do they expect that to happen? If you take away the police and you don't add any kind of federal agents or anything to back them up, what is the answer?
Well, I don't think thanks for having me, Trace, number one, but I don't think you could look at what's happening in these communities in a vacuum. Policing isn't the only input that gets you to solving crime. We have to remember that this is happening in an environment where you have one, a pandemic, two, economic collapse, and three, you have an uprising for racial injustice. And in many of the places where these crimes are taking place, you also have over policing. You have aggressive policing already. On the south and west side of Chicago, for example, you have aggressive policing. You have police presence is there as a deterrent. So what has to happen in these communities, number one, is a conversation with communities to figure out what's best. And two, you also have to talk to communities to figure out what's going on there. And when you have conversations in many of these communities, what you'll hear from their residents, the majority of them black and brown individuals, is that they fear police. Right. So that when a crime happens on your block, instead of calling law enforcement, you won't call law enforcement because you see what happens in videos like what happened to George Floyd. Right. And so you say, well, when I call the law enforcement, they might do something to me or they might do something to my children. And that's why we've got to really work on how do we beef up community policing? How do we rebuild trust in these communities so that when crimes happen on your street, you're willing to call police and you see them as a partner in solving the problem.
Richard makes a good point there. I mean, you know, Jason, Richard makes a good point there because what he's saying is there is not a lot of trust. I want to put up this this quote from the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden. He says, quoting here, Homeland Security agents without a clearly defined mandate or authority are ranging far from federal property, stripped of badges and insignia and identifying markings to detain people. They are brutally attacking peaceful protesters, including a U.S. Navy veteran. And then Mark Morgan, the acting Customs and Border Protection Commissioner, responded. He was responding to the Chicago mayor, but it could be in response to Biden as well. Listen.
Those are misinformed, irresponsible, and reckless statements, and they're just devoid of any fact or truth. Again, our presence in Portland is to respond to violent criminals who are willfully, knowingly, with intent, attacking federal property, and the federal law enforcement's there to defend that property.
Jason, your thoughts?
I stand with the law enforcement, and shame on Joe Biden to disparage the men and women who are putting their lives on the line to protect these cities, serve their country, serve their communities. I don't think, Richard, that by having more conversations, that is suddenly fundamentally going to make the shootings in Chicago go down. Do they need new leadership? Do they need a new mayor? Do they need a new governor? Do they need political leaders that actually serve those people better? Absolutely. And neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block, you're right. I do believe, and I would agree, that those police have to work hand in hand with religious leaders, community leaders, and those schools. But as Joe Biden said, redirecting billions of dollars away from the police when a woman is being pummeled by some guy in an apartment, I don't think sending in a social worker is going to solve that problem.
Yeah, and I'll give you the last word on this, Richard.
Well, allow me to say this.
Go ahead.
Allow me to say this, Trace. Think about the interview we just heard from the Fraternal Order of the Police, the director there. He talked about a 6-year-old who was using a gun. Where should a 6-year-old be? Maybe in a summer program, maybe in a rec center. So when we talk about redirecting funds, we're not talking about firing police officers. We're talking about creating resources so that a 6-year-old doesn't have to resort to violent crime. They can go to a community center. They could get a social worker to deal with their social and emotional needs so they don't have to resort to violent crime. They don't have to resort to selling drugs. We need to re-enrich these communities so that there's not a history of poverty there. And it doesn't mean more aggressive policing. The response that you hear from Donald Trump and Jason is put more cops on the streets. That's going to solve the problem. But when has putting more cops on the streets ever solved the problem? The war on drugs is a prime example of that. We put more cops on the streets, and now we can all agree that the war on drugs is a failed war.
Yeah, and what we need is more robust debate like this. Jason Chaffetz, Richard Fowler, gentlemen, thank you both.
All right, now, everybody, we're going to swing over here to the CNN broadcast. That was about a 5.5-minute broadcast that we received from Fox. All we have under the heading and the only video displayed from CNN is a 1-minute and 13-second video. Let's see what CNN had to say.
Today, President Trump is expected to announce Operation Legend, which is the deployment of federal law enforcement agents to Chicago and Albuquerque. This is coming as Trump faces increasing backlash for sending agents to Portland. Protesters and federal agents have clashed there. The pictures have been eye-opening as we have watched them. This is where protests have lasted more than 50 days. The former head of Homeland Security even criticized the president's use of the department. Take a listen to Tom Ridge.
The department was established to protect America from the ever-present threat of global terrorism. It was not established to be the president's personal militia. It'd be a cold day in hell before I would consent to an unilateral, uninvited intervention in one of my cities.
Those comments join a chorus of calls from city mayors who are angered by the president's decision. More than a dozen mayors joining Portland and asking the Trump administration to withdraw federal forces. The mayors are writing this, quote, "These are tactics we expect from authoritarian regimes, not our democracy." The mayor of Albuquerque saying, quote, "There is no place for Trump's secret police in our city."
Silver Dog. Now, what I want to get to now is how everybody feels after seeing each side. We need to look at everything. How much time was presented, how much was given to the subject, and who was the main topic or speaker. Now, with that being said, let's take a moment, review this video, like, comment, and share your opinions. Do you feel there should have been more from each side? Was there anything missing in the explanation? Remember, on CNNnews.com and FoxNews.com, under the topics of Trump and federal agents in Chicago, these are the only videos that you will see. So, how do you feel they are covering the topic, and what are you getting from it? Thank you, everybody. This is UMO News. Again, Nick, thank you very much for supporting an unbiased media outlet and independent journalism.